Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where once again the Disney studio is able to dominate an entire episode of Morning Movie News. It isn't the first time they've done it, and I'm sure it won't be the last, but they continue to be the most prolific studio working in Hollywood today. They took a long time setting everything up and to get it in motion, acquiring different brands, really diversifying their portfolio, and it has literally paid off. They are incredibly aggressive, and despite very strong competition from the other studios, they do continue to stay ahead of the pack, as you're going to see from today's stories. Although the first one, technically, they share with Sony, although fans, of course, are hoping that Sony is largely benched for the new Spider-Man film. But at least Sony still can, call it a win for themselves, even if people are hoping that, Marvel's doing all the heavy lifting. Disney Marvel. Of course, Marvel can sometimes, actually just the Marvel brand is over at Fox. Marvel has no say in the decisions that are made over at that studio. But anyway, today we're talking about Spider-Man. And as we've discussed before, Spider-Man is something that Disney Marvel is willing to work with another studio on, because back when they had a bankruptcy situation, they sold not only the film rights to Spider-Man, but they sold part of the character rights to Sony as well. So they ain't never getting that character back. So that's the reason that they're willing to work with Sony. And they, of course, Kevin Feige really wanted Spider-Man in the upcoming Captain America Civil War movie. He got cast too late to have a large role. It's a little bit of a mess. We'll see how it turns out. But then, of course, to protect the character, they are helping to make the actual standalone films over at Sony. But yesterday, of course, they've already cast Tom Holland as Peter Parker and Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. As you can see, they've aged everything down, and they're really going to focus on a genuine high school story. Tobey Maguire was supposed to be in high school, but I don't think any of us really believe that. But anyway, they now have cast someone who I think is even more believable as a high school student, although I believe she's actually college age, and that's Zendaya, who was cast yesterday in the new Spider-Man movie. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with the amount of press that the Zendaya casting got. And I think that, we'll see if that fan excitement over her casting materializes in box office numbers. There are a lot of, celebrities that are very strong in the tabloids and online, but when it comes to actually selling movie tickets, they don't quite deliver. Angelina Jolie is, of course, unless she's in the right role, be it Tomb Raider, really only the first Tomb Raider and Maleficent. Otherwise, people are more content to read about her for free online than they are, or to buy a magazine with her on the cover, than they are to pay to see her in a movie. Some other people like Scarlett Johansson used to be that way, but Scarlett Johansson proves that you can, turn things around, never say never. But Zendaya at least is proven to be very strong in social media. So she was cast in this role, and she got a ton of attention. So if I were her management team, I would be really utilizing that to land her another role before Spider-Man comes out. Just, why wait to book your next role until after you prove that you couldn't put butts in the seats, right? That's the other Hollywood strategy. We talked Disney strategy. Hollywood strategy is book your next role before your movie opens. Or at least get in talks. Chris Pratt, of course, is an example of someone who's able to boost his salary after Jurassic World opened on Passengers, but he still was in talks for that picture before Jurassic World opened off of the strength of Guardians of the Galaxy. But you always want to book your next project because, you never know how the movie that's coming out is going to do, and you want to make sure you already have moved on to the next step, because sometimes that can save you from if the movie doesn't do well. So Zendaya, her management team should be working very hard to get her some kind of lead role, because this is supposed to be like super supporting. Some people wondered if she was going to be a new Mary Jane, a new Gwen Stacy. She's a character named Michelle, apparently. And there is, as you guys pointed out, a Michelle Gonzalez recently featured in the comics, but she was like a lawyer, and that was very much an adult storyline. Now, not to say, they could be like, well, let's just age her down like, Peter Parker. But it might just be an entirely new character, although I wouldn't be against the idea of maybe moving beyond Mary Jane and moving beyond Gwen Stacy, because we've just done that to death already. In one case, literally, I couldn't help myself. But, I'm curious to see if people are interested in Zendaya, because where does she come from? She's another Disney Channel star. She was on Shake It Up, and it's interesting that, Disney is helping to make the new Spider-Man movie, and they've gotten one of their Disney stars on the show. But, she also was on Shake It Up with Bella Thorne, who also is very popular on social media, but is yet to see that materialize in ticket sales. I think that Bella Thorne, the movies that she has been in, have actually not done particularly well. And at this point, I would be nervous about casting Bella Thorne, because while people get excited about a news story with her in it, they don't actually pay to see her movie. So let's hope that Zendaya can fare a little bit better. But she also has something going for her in that she, of course, was part of that infamous fashion police situation where Juliana Rancic said that because she wore dreadlocks to the Oscars, that she must smell like weed, which, of course, was incredibly offensive and caused fashion police to implode. So Zendaya got a lot of sympathy out of that, a lot of good publicity. And she, her management team is very good, because they're able to parlay that into a lot of opportunities for her. For instance, she's now a cover girl. So I think that Zendaya's career is going very nicely. I think by no means is it solidified, but I think she's definitely a hot commodity, made even hotter by the splash that was made with her casting yesterday in the new Spider-Man movie. I think it's nice to also bring a little bit of diversity to that cast, to try and show a high school class that looks like what high school classes actually look like today. Although it's interesting, we just talked about Nina Simone yesterday and light-skinned actresses versus dark-skinned actresses, and this is another light-skinned actress that is doing quite well when there aren't really any dark-skinned actresses who are excelling right now, outside of Lupita Nyong'o, but she, of course, is infamously struggling. Thank goodness for Ava DuVernay, who seems to be one of the few people who is actually employing her, and Disney, but largely as a voice in their films. All right, so that's the first story of the day, and I'm curious, what do you think of Zendaya? Are you excited that she's in Spider-Man? Do you want to see her be the new love interest, maybe? Do you want to see Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy yet again? And also, do you think that Zendaya is a big star? Do you think she will sell movie tickets, or do you think it's a little bit too early to tell? And why don't you like Bella Thorne? I think that would be interesting. I'd love to know, why do you guys talk so much about these people when they're cast, and when there are news stories about them and you like them on social media, but why don't you pay to see them when they actually come out with a movie? All right, so that's the first story of the day. So the second story of the day is those Team Cap posters that were released. I believe the Iron Man posters are probably going to be released today, but my thoughts on these can pretty much apply to them across the board. I think they're horrible. I think they're actually some of the worst posters I've ever seen, and I'm really shocked that Disney would have such a huge miss here, because let's face it, the way they're doing it with these Team Cap and individual character posters, they're kind of like trading cards, right? They're really making you feel like trading cards, particularly because of the versus quality, right? There are a lot of trading card games where, my team versus your team, etc., etc. So you would think that you would want to have posters that looked like really awesome trading cards. And when you have characters with superpowers and cool costumes, you want to show that off in the trading card, right? I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a trading card, with maybe the exception of Professor Xavier, which is just a head. And and a profile, no less. And that's what these posters are. I also think that in some cases, it's very hard to tell what you're looking at, right? And it doesn't really say comic book movie, right? You'd have to really be into it to be excited about it, seeing this poster out in the real world. For instance, the Bucky poster, that doesn't look anything like Sebastian Stan. I was like, who is that? And then I was like, oh, it must be Bucky by process of elimination. Also, Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch. Why would you showcase Scarlet Witch without utilizing her powers? It just seems so odd to me. The only one I really particularly liked was Paul Rudd, because it was so cool to see him on that sort of a poster. It's like, Paul Rudd, he suffered at the box office for so long, and look at him, he held out, and a little bit like Mark Ruffalo, now suddenly he is in a superhero movie with a cool superhero poster. So I thought that was really great. But overall, I think these posters are weak. They're way too close in the shot. They should have pulled back significantly. And I just can't see anyone being like, I'd like to put that on my wall, right? I mean, I'm just curious. I think people were excited about them because it was more Captain America Civil War stuff. But, beyond just new stuff to digest, I think they specifically aren't anything to be that excited about. All right, so that's the second story of the day, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about the posters. Do you like them, or would you have preferred them to look more like cool trading cards? All right, so the third story of the day, yes, Disney yet again. And this is, they have done very well in live-action fairy tales. I think that their production design is particularly impressive. Like, even though I had problems with Cinderella from a story perspective, it was absolutely a stunning film visually. I think it was robbed, actually, for Best Costume, because that gown they created for Cinderella was just absolutely a modern marvel. It was just really impressive. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful movie. So it looks like they're taking that success and they're going to go beyond live action fairy tales, updating their animated classics to tell other potential fairy tales. And this one sounds spectacular. Disney actually had to compete in a bidding war for this property, but they ended up getting a reimagining of the Nutcracker. Now, I recently saw the Nutcracker. I'd seen it when I was little, but I'd seen it recently again, the famous New York ballet performance at Lincoln Center. I saw it about 2 years ago, I think. And it was absolutely stunning to look at, but, it has no dialogue. So obviously they're going to have to, do a lot to flesh out that story. I think they're combining the Nutcracker and, also a novelization of it into one film. But it's beautiful visually. I think they can make an absolutely stunning movie in 3D. But it was funny because, all these people paid to go and see this production with their family for the holidays. And I would say that in the second act, like, everybody fell asleep. At least every parent or every dad in the audience. Although I have to say, I had a real hard time not nodding off as well. Because it's gorgeous. It's, like, very cozy and, like, very beautiful. But at the same time, there's no dialogue. And you're just like, it's so beautiful. I'll take a nap. And I was like, all these people paid to take a nap. That's a very expensive nap. Thank you to my parents for taking me. So anyway, I think that I think it's a good idea, but I worry about the story. I feel that the story might be a little bit, not as exciting as one would want for this kind of a property. Also, Lasse Hallström is going to direct, and he's a very good director, but I don't really know how good he would be at this. Kenneth Branagh turned out to be amazing. Cinderella did very good business. So I guess to some degree, if you give Lasse Hallström a wonderful production designer and a wonderful costume designer and a good VFX person, he should be just fine because he can just focus on the quality of the storytelling. But I would keep a very close eye on this because Lasse Hallström doesn't have a lot of experience with visual effects. And also, while his movies are very beautiful, they aren't particularly, I said with Cinderella, someone barfed up a bunch of production design or fantasy all over the movie, and I don't know if Lasse Hallström would go along with that. But, I say barfed up, but I mean it in a positive way, because it was, again, very beautiful. It was just a lot of excess, and I don't know if Lasse Hallström is an excess type of director. But I'm curious, are you interested in a Nutcracker type film? I see tremendous potential for this at the holidays to come out, but I don't think it's a slam dunk by any means. And also, what do you think of Disney moving beyond live action fairy tales and going in this direction? All right, so I can see why everybody bid for that, but I think Disney can potentially do the best because Disney, again, very diverse, very strong arsenal at their disposal because they can, put out, stuff at the theme parks. They can do a TV special. They have the Disney Store to promote it. They are really like a machine in terms of, getting a movie out there and making it seem like an event, which is very, very important, especially these days because television is such a strong competitor and you can watch it at home largely for free, or at least for a much lower price, and you don't have to deal with any of the frustrations that have come about at the movie theater. Now let's go to today's viewer question, which came actually from Movie Math yesterday from Ms. Abby 101. And Miss Abby says, "Hi Grace, I'm wondering if you or any of your viewers, so please, feel free to share your own thoughts on this down below, as always." Abby says, "Could help me understand why release dates in Hollywood are so important for a movie's success. Is it about finding a weekend day most people are out of school or work and thus have time to see it, or something else entirely?" Great question, Abby. I think it's mixed. I think we're seeing a change in the importance of release dates and, the big movie-going times of year. I think you're seeing that for two reasons. One, it's just so darn crowded that new ground has to be, found. And also, I think that movies are becoming such events that, people will come because they just want to see the movie. You're switching from, I just want to go to the movies because it's such and such a weekend, to I really want to see this movie XYZ. That's very positive, actually. actually, although I think it keeps people from maybe discovering some other films, right? Because they're only going, they're seeing only movies that they actively choose to see, and they're not so much into taking risks on films that, they're not sure about. But, movies are expensive, and, it's hard to ask people to take a risk if I think Hollywood has to do a little bit of a better job delivering. So anyway, the reason that weekend release dates are important is that you want to get a time, as you said, Abby, when people want to go out. For instance, the traditional ones are a 3-day weekend. Very important, especially because you have that extra day. Sunday becomes a day that's more in play to go to the movies because you don't have to go to work the next day. Spring break, huge movie-going time. People are out of school, kids in particular, obviously, but, their parents want to do something with them. Really another good time to go to the movies. Summer, huge movie-going season, but not all of summer. For instance, late August, very bad time for a movie to open. Labor Day as well, because it's the last hurrah, and everyone's like, I gotta get my summer activities in before I'm stuck going back to school and back to work. So that's one reason that movies do not do well during that time period. Then there's Thanksgiving. Big movie-going weekend because people, they eat the turkey and then they want to go out and have a good time and see a movie. And then the holidays, though, are tricky because while people like to go out like on Christmas Day, it's a tough time because people are doing a lot of shopping. They have family events. It's hard for them actually to get to the movies. So that's why I think, Thanksgiving and Christmas Day are big releases. And right before Christmas, Lord of the Rings took that date for a while. Harry Potter has been there. And now, of course, Star Wars has settled into that date. But, otherwise, it's a little bit difficult actually during the holiday season. But you're seeing a real change in that, again, as I said, because of, the change in the way people go to the movies. But yes, you want to find a time that people want to go to the movies, they're not distracted by something else, and they have time to go to the movies. Although I do think, I'm curious to know how you guys feel about this. I feel that the structure of people's lives is changing very much. I think people have more autonomy in setting their schedule. I think people take more vacations. I think people work more from home. And so I think you're seeing a really big difference, and also in the way people work and go to school. And I think that's another reason that perhaps people are able to break from the traditional release dates. And then, of course, also you want to position yourself competitively with the competition. You don't want to open opposite a movie that has the same audience. Maybe there's a movie opening the next weekend. You want to make sure that's not the case. You want to maybe give yourself a little bit of a cushion. Look at Deadpool, beautifully positioned to take advantage of the entire month of February. Zootopia, it has a couple of weeks before any other animated family fare comes out. Very, very smart. But then also, as we talked about on Movie Math, Gerard Butler put 2 of his movies back to back, Gods of Egypt and London Has Fallen, and both suffered. Well, Gods of Egypt stumbled out of the gate, but then, London Has Fallen tripped over the carcass of Gods of Egypt. Well, not carcass, that's strong. The movie's doing okay, but, the very badly wounded Gods of Egypt. So there are a lot of different things at play, but that's how you pick a release date. But, the rules are changing, so I think your question is definitely valid. So I'm curious, for you guys, what do you think of the way release dates are decided? But also, how has going to the movies changed for you as of late? Do you still go during the traditional times, or has your schedule changed? Do you find yourself going at different times than you usually did? And also, do you take risks anymore with movies that are coming out? Do you try stuff, or are you very selective in the movies that you go and see, and you make your decision weeks or months in advance, right? So that's today's Morning Movie News. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Abby, for your question. Thank you, everybody, so much. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, Abby's question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.